A stakeholder masterclass because growth is not driven by features, but actually by the influence of your stakeholders.
Welcome to the Snack Break, where leaders in the post-sales like implementation, support, account management, and customer success are going to talk about growth and retention. Make sure to tune in, grab a coffee, and listen to this episode.
So stakeholder masterclasses with Wout. Wout, you are a respected leader, like the remote customer success leader for Mural. Like you're remote because your company is remote. I highly respect that. Like some people are in office, other people are hybrid, other people are remote. But you're my go-to person if I'm like, how can you manage such a big international team from your own home office? But today we're here to talk about stakeholder management. And I call it the masterclass of Wout. But can you tell the audience why should we listen to you on stakeholder management within customer success?
Definitely, yeah. No pressure on the masterclass. We'll see what people think about afterwards. No, so why I think I have something to say about this. Like you said, I work at Mural for the past 7 years. I've been leading the customer success organization across EMEA and APEC. And the thing with Mural is that it is a very horizontal product, right? So it's used by many teams in our customers, right? It's not just the procurement team, it's not just an engineering team, a lot of people. So it's a lot of stakeholders, right? So you really have to think hard about like the influence that these stakeholders have, managing all these stakeholders. So I learned a thing or two, I think, over the last years. And fun fact, I'm speaking at our SKO next week about this very topic. So consider this my dry run.
Yeah, so it's really funny. So last week, another company, like a VP of sales called me. He's like, hey, Mick, I really want to have a session on stakeholder management and relationship management. So this comes like on the right time because AI is making superhumans out of everyone. But relationship management and stakeholder management is something that you need to do as a person. Like you cannot build relationships with technology, like you need human-to-human interaction. Yes, you can leverage some tools, but I'm here to learn a lot on what kind of stakeholders, who owns it, and how can you leverage it. So thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, very much. I'm very looking forward to it.
So what is stakeholder management for you?
Yeah, so you touched upon it a little bit there, like when you talk about like stakeholder management, relationship management. A part of it, and it is also important, but it's definitely not everything, is the relationship to human interaction, like knowing when your birthday is, like going for a coffee together. These types of things are important, but that is not all that stakeholder management is, right? Like especially on like complex accounts and on the enterprise level, it's about like managing influence for me, stakeholder management, right? So what I mean with managing influence is controlling the narrative that exists on your product inside that organization, especially when you're not there, right? So thinking about like all different levels, I call it like different layers of stakeholders, because for me, there are 4 different layers of stakeholders in a customer. So one is the usage layer, right? So like where the power users are, where the administrators maybe of your software are, very important for us to work with, right? Like keep them happy, drive adoption, drive usage. I mean, that's like you would maybe say the bread and butter of customer success, but it's also like a layer, and we'll maybe get to that later, where we get stuck sometimes, right? And where we feel very comfortable, but we need to move up. We need to move to those next layers. And so I'm really thinking about like the next layer is more around like advocacy. So think about the people that are your champions, right? Like they are the ones that are opening doors for you, connecting you to company initiatives, connecting you to new teams and so forth. These people are critical for you to expand and to grow and to get a better position. But it doesn't end there, because then the next level is like up in the organization, right? Like think about like the operational layer, your business sponsors, your economic buyers, the people who are above the people that are using your product, right? So if you have an engineering product, the VP of engineering, if you're in procurement, like chief procurement officer, getting these people involved. And then there's even another layer, like one layer above that is your more like your financial layer, like the people who are actually going to sign the check. Could be like a CFO, for example. Every single layer speaks a different language. Every single layer requires different things to do, but every layer is important, right? Like you cannot build a house, you cannot build your renewal on just one of the layers or 2 of the layers. You need all 4 of them, because you might have, for example, like great success in the adoption layer, right? Like adoption is through the roof, like everything is going great, but you don't have anybody in the economic layer or nobody in the operational layer. that's very risky. Like when renewal comes, like if nobody know, you don't have any relationships, that's tricky. And the other way around as well, like maybe you have those relationships with senior people and they trust you, but if there is no adoption, you also have a difficult story to tell. So you need everything across all of these layers. And I know I went a bit deep here, like right in the first answer, but like that's really top of mind, like that whole structure.
Yeah, so you believe in the 4 layers. And just to add a little bit of context, like I talk to many different types of organizations. What are the revenue numbers or the contract that you are managing? Like just to provide the context.
Great context, because this might seem a lot if you have low value number accounts. So the contracts that we manage are all 6-figure contracts up to millions of dollars.
Yeah, I still see like a champion leaving as one of the biggest risk indicators or churn indicators. And personally, I have this rule. I always want 3 champions on 2 levels. And it doesn't matter if you're doing SMB or enterprise accounts, like this is sort of my average rule for everything. So like 3 champions on 2 layers. Do you have something like this? Do you have a little extra rule next to your 4 layers?
Yeah, I mean, definitely you need to have a buffer. Like whatever that number is, like it's probably different per, like how you, maybe your personal different, but also like in terms of contract, the product. But yeah, definitely you need to have a buffer, because like you said, like if the champion leaves, that's your only champion. You have to start from scratch. Like you don't have anything. So you need to build in some safety operators.
So if we just focus on those 4 layers, like you had the operational layer with strategic and economic buyer, then below that you had your champion and your operator, your specialist, sometimes your power users. Like mistakes that I often see is that we use one type of content and we just send it to all different layers. So we'll talk about multi-threading in a little bit, but what are the biggest mistakes you have seen or you have made in the last 7 years about stakeholder management?
Definitely. That's a great question. I mean, like a good example is like in the adoption layer, you're talking about like features more often, right? Like, hey, is this feature enabled? Hey, we have a new AI feature like every company has right now. Cool. For users, that's great, right? Like for admins, they need to talk about that. But if you say that to a CFO, to a VP of engineering, they're like, what do you mean? Like a feature?
Good on you.
Great. So you need to change the narrative there, right? Like you need to talk about, to the more strategic person, like the leader of the department, you have to talk about like, what does this feature do for them? Does it save his team or her team time, right? Or do they get like better quality of product? And even that narrative might not be interesting to the CFO, right? Because what does a CFO care about? Numbers, dollars, euros, right? Like
Excel
money,
sheets,
money.
like
Exactly.
sheets.
So there you have to talk even differently. You have to actually say like, hey, this product helped us save like X dollars of money, or we could reduce hiring by X, like really like those kind of like quantifiable things. That's what a CFO wants to hear in the end, and how you talk their language.
Yeah, so I think the old school relationship manager who is just drinking a coffee and bringing the little suitcase of like, hey, this is all the functionalities that we have, then you're just not going deep enough. No. So like, I think the biggest mistake I've made personally or with my teams is that I said, like, trusted someone, said, yeah, I have a really good relationship with this person and it's good enough. And then I was like pushing, maybe you need like a little buffer, you need extra people. Like, no, but this person is really my buddy. And I'm like, okay, maybe we make this exception once. But having this spread and this depth, I think is crucial. But we're going to talk about enablement a little bit more. But what's like a personal mistake or a failure that you've made with this?
Yeah, so like focusing on like level 1, as I call it, right? Like the usage and adoption. It's something that I've done myself. I see like in my team, very common. That's very comfortable working in that layer, right? Like
and rewarding.
And rewarding. Like you get instant triggers. Like, hey, we solved it. Like, hey, we answered the question of a user. Or like, hey, we made someone happy with a new feature. It's very instant rewarding, and like it's very comfortable working in that area. But like you don't have any foundation, right? So like I think those two really are the opposites. Like I think this one that you mentioned and the one that you mentioned of like that's maybe more on the strategic level. Like, hey, we have a great trusting relationship with the economic buyer. Perfect, everything is good. But just having one or the other is not enough.
Yeah, and like purely to also add a little bit of context for the audience, like what makes your organization unique is that you have a very close relationship with sales because you're not commercially responsible. Yeah. So how does that work in your layer of 4? Like who owns the relationship?
Yeah, great question. And as we like to say, nobody owns a relationship because like ownership makes it feel that the other person is not relevant in there. So we have like a POC. for every layer. And what that looks like in reality is just like adoption, advocacy, those layers. That's really where customer success is the driver, you can also call it. In the more strategic and the economic layers, of course, it is sales. So these 4 layers help us also with roles and responsibilities in our teams, like with partnership between sales and CS, who does what, but they need to collaborate, right, between those. Like you cannot just like, hey, CS goes their own way, sales goes their own way with their own stakeholders, because both feed into each other in terms of like getting to a successful renewal. You can think about like CS owns like value realization, as we like to call it, right, like for the product, and then sales uses that to close a renewal or to close an expansion. I heard like a nice analogy the other day. I mean, I don't know if this is like the right thing to say, but like CS kind of manufactures the bullets and sales fires them, to give like an extreme example, but that maybe pictures it.
Yeah, like I love the analogy and like it speaks for itself. I like to debate with you on one thing.
Yeah.
So you say we don't want ownership, because then you also have that everyone that is not an owner feels that they can just lean back a little bit. However, I always say someone needs to be an owner.
Yeah.
So split ownership for me is always very dangerous. Now I say there's someone in the lead and the other one is supporting. So I don't like the racing models. I like who's the driver and another gun, and who's shotgun. So who owns it with 51% and who owns it 49%? Like, why do you choose to say point of contact instead of ownership?
No, it's a good point. Like I think there's probably like a little bit of like historical reasons in terms of like how things work, but I agree with your point. Like there is one person that is in the lead and that is like owning it, so to say, because you need to both be involved, right? Like you cannot just have the salesperson not be involved with the users and the advocates whatsoever, right? Like the salesperson needs to work with the stories that CS brings up and with those users as well to bring up. So it is a shared responsibility, but there is a clear owner. Thank you for asking that question. That is very important.
And like, if we talk about those like 4 layers, like, and you have the ownership, personally, I believe part of leadership is making people do the uncomfortable elements. So can we just move to enablement? So how do you make sure that people have enough breadth, enough depth? How are we gonna enable those people? Like the people that are listening, like tomorrow, they say, okay, we need to go 4 layers. We need to change everything. So can you give us a sneak peek of what you're gonna do in your SKO?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great question. So yeah, like you're talking about like enablement and like having enough like bandwidth and everything available to do that, right? So I think first of all, it starts around like understanding the why, right? Like why are we doing this, and believing in those 4 layers or whatever, how many layers you define, but like believing that it is important, right? Because if you, like as a CSM, for example, believe like, okay, that's like all crap that people talk about in a podcast, that's cool, I'm going to talk with the admins, this is not what I believe in, we can enable what we want, right? Like it starts with that part. And then it's really like helping people like up level in those conversations, right? And like understand like how you move between the different layers. So we spoke about some of the examples of how you speak to the different roles, and I think that's super important to understand, hey, what does a CFO care about? What does a VP of engineering care about? And I really like this like internally. Part of that also comes from kind of like internal role playing. Like our CFO is very engaged, and he comes into conversations with account teams like all the time. And it's like, hey, me as a CFO, I would ask these questions, or I think about this. And same thing for our, I don't know, VP of HR, etc. I think those are helpful to understand. And yeah, that's all like about like up leveling that conversation. I think is great to start with.
Wow, I love this idea, like the internal role play with the personas, and then lunch and learn, or having a conversation like what matters to these people. Like we love to make placemats and ICPs and personas and focus groups, but on a recurring basis, actually inviting your internal stakeholder, like to do internal role playing. Like I've never heard this. It's super creative.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you have all those roles, right, internally, or you should probably, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the size, but like I know companies that don't have a chief procurement officer yet, but like yeah. Okay, like it's super nice. So like personally, I believe in ATCAR as a change management tool. So awareness, desire. So you start with the why, then you're gonna do the how. You give the examples, but how do you operationalize this even further? You have taught them the why. Like, and you also do internal stakeholders and like internal role playing. Like, what's the next step? How are you going to bring this into your team?
Yeah. So like one is like, I mean, it's quite operationally, right? Like, hey, how do you track these stakeholders, right? Like you might think about, like when I say stakeholder mapping, it's like a buzzword, right? Seems a little bit stuffy sometimes. And what you might think about is like a list of people in the CRM, right? Or a list of people in Excel, maybe even, right? And you could even check, right? Like, hey, do you have people or a person or probably multiple people, to your point? Like you need to have a buffer in every layer. That's a first check. And that's maybe like a first step also for the audience to think about. Like think about your favorite account or the account that you work with most. Do you have someone in every layer? But not only do you have someone, can you identify someone? Do you have a relationship with them? Do you know what they're talking about internally? Do you project influence into the organization through them? If you don't have that, there might be a risk. There might be something to work at.
Like, I believe like stakeholder mapping is a buzzword indeed, but let's make it one step practical, and that's org charts.
Yeah.
Because like too little people use it. Because it's always seen like, it's a difficult exercise. It takes a lot of time. Like you work at Mural, you guys have the tool internally. How is that like, does everyone make amazing org charts or is this an illusion?
No, you set me right up here for a good answer, I guess. So I was saying like, hey, traditional could be like a list of people in the CRM, right? Like the way we do it at Mural, we have like a visual canvas to work with. So obviously we create our account plans and our stakeholder mapping, our success plans, everything on a Mural that is also shared with customers. So on that we map like with LinkedIn profiles, etc. as well. Also like org charts, but we don't like to think in org charts as such because org charts, it doesn't always explain the full picture. Like what's more interesting is to do a stakeholder map. And a stakeholder map versus an org chart, the difference is in an org chart is like who reports to whom. A stakeholder map is who influences whom. So you can think about like if you visualize this in front of you, you have like different stakeholders. And it is not just like reporting lines, but it is like lines with like, hey, how do people influence each other inside the organization? And are those lines green or red or amber and like context on there? That's really about like mapping, like, hey, what is the narrative in this organization and where is there opportunity and where is there risk? And I think that that's really powerful to do it in this visual way.
And are you allowed to share a template on that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Because last week we implemented this because most CRMs, they have either a plugin or they have it themselves or they connect with tools like yourself. But people are always like, how do I start? And I want to help them to understand that it's not about the volume and about how much you do it because we make it too big in our own heads. But I want to simplify it and keep it like use your stakeholder map template to say like, hey, this is something you can use, you can implement tomorrow, you can start with it. It costs you 15 to 20 minutes to make and that's it.
Definitely. We'll share it afterwards. And like one thing I will say about this operation of how we operationalize this as well, what's probably the most critical thing here is that this is not a one-time exercise, right? Like it's not something like, hey, we'll just do it once, perfect, and now we're done. If you're operating with a stakeholder map that's 6 months old, it's probably out of date, right? Like organizations change.
So it's a continuous thing.
It's a living document. It's a living document that you continuously need to update. And that's why it's really like a living document. Like it's not like an org chart that feels more static. Of course, they also change, but it's really fluid and you find out new things like every time you speak with the customer, like a new leader coming in, people leaving, a strategy changing, new directions. Everything comes together in that stakeholder map.
And I've heard you use the term influence a few times now. Like, do you like the book, like the Carnegie about how to influence people? Like, I always believe that when we do stakeholder management or relationship management, if you're not liked, if people don't like to be in the same room with you, or if people don't like to be in the same meeting with you, you can't even go deeper. So I always say, like, you need to know at least one personal fact about your stakeholder, then you're at minimum depth. If you don't even know that they have a kid or that they have a dog or that what their favorite football team is, I always say you have a very shallow relationship. So first work on being liked or at least not disliked. Do you agree or how do you see this?
100%. And like, as you can imagine, this becomes a little bit harder for us as well, like always working in a remote environment. So like it's harder to build a deeper relationship with someone just through a screen. It's easier if you just take someone for a coffee or like go for lunch. And of course, those are maybe more extreme examples, but it's critical to go a little bit deeper on a personal level because otherwise you're probably going to stay very superficial in the relationship. So one thing that I coach my team on is like indeed like building that personal relationship. Like there is time for small talk, right? Like if I'm watching we use Gong to I can watch recordings from my team, for example. If there is no small talk, that's probably like an alarm flag that goes up in terms of hey, this is very tactical, transactional is the right word I was looking for. Exactly. So, and the more small talk, there is better relationship, and there's more trust, right? Like you can ask uncomfortable questions more easily.
Yeah, first build the trust, I love to lead vulnerability, then trust, then authority. And sometimes people come in with authority and then you never can go deeper. But so we've talked about the why. We've talked about your structure and how you operationalize it, how you coach your team. This is the ideal world. So what are the trigger points, or where do you see the risk in failure of this process that you envision?
Yeah, like one of the main risks, one of the things that you see happening is what I just mentioned, for example, around stakeholder mapping, becoming a one-time exercise. That's where I see it most often failing. Is it becomes a strategy, hey, start of the new year, make your stakeholder maps, make your account plans, your growth plans, and then we forget about it.
It ends somewhere.
It ends. And I think that's the main responsibility for us as leaders, as revenue leaders, to keep that on front of the agenda for our teams and help remind them. And it's not hey, beginning of the year, that's it, but really constantly bring that up on a consistent basis.
How much top of mind does it need to be? So if you would be in my team and I would be your leader, and I would ask you, do you know who the advocate is? Can you name me two, and who's your economic buyer? Do you think that should be top of mind?
I think it should be top of mind. Ideally, really top of mind, they can just tell me, right? Or, sometimes people have a lot of accounts and there are a lot of stakeholders, right? So they should be able to find it. I won't hold a stopwatch, but within a minute.
No, but ideally, I always believe it needs to be top of mind. But then if it starts living in the mind, you forget to update the document. So that's always the risk of admin and actual doing the work. And I think that's one of the biggest risks here, is that it's either a static exercise or you forget to update. Yeah. So you need to be very diligent about update. And yeah.
No, exactly. And there are ways that technology can help in this as well. Because if I'm thinking about a couple of years back, this was all truly manual, right? So you really had to update your CRM, log your notes and all those kind of things. So now you can maybe more easily, you give tags to people, hey, this is our economic buyer, etc. They live in the system. But the activity with those stakeholders, that's all get tracked automatically these days, right? Like I mentioned before, we use Gong, so Gong knows when we've spoken to a person. So our CRM or our system will actually flag hey, you have an economic buyer here, but I don't see any activity for the last X months. So that helps support and make that a little bit easier. And this is a good bridge to this is really a risk factor, right? For your health score, not being multi-threaded is a risk. And being multi-threaded, having actively conversations with these people. It doesn't count hey, we have a name here for signer. Hey, did we speak with that signer?
So let's go into multi-threading a little bit. So for me, multi-threading, I always think, okay, you have 5 different people at the company. So I personalize my message to these 5 people. I go omni-channel. I use different types of content. One is essays, the other one is SMS, dependent on the person. So I'm very extreme about what's in it for them. But what do you see as multi-threading?
Yeah, multi-threading for me, and especially for our product, which again is very horizontal. For me, it's also multi-threading, having relationships across these layers, maybe vertically in my mind, but also horizontally, right? Having different ways of engaging with the organization, because our product is used across the whole organization. So you're engaged at multiple levels and layers, something like that.
Okay, I love it. Go deep, go wide, or go breadth and depth. There's all these different elements. So in a few months from now, you've made this SKO next week, you're gonna implement this, you're coaching on your people. How do you help them on a personal level? So you see that they don't have the right stakeholder or their conversations are shallow. What are your coaching tricks? Do you have specific questions you want them to ask, or how do you help them get to maybe a step of uncomfortable stakeholder management?
Yeah, I think that's a great trigger for me, to how I'm going to work with the rest of my team. It's personal, right? Everybody is different. Everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses in this area. So first of all, identifying together where are their strengths and what are they uncomfortable with, right? And then going in that direction. So for example, is there a specific layer that they are uncomfortable with. And with that, I mean, for example, they're really, really good at working with users, adoption is great, they have great success in that area, but are they able to translate that success into like articulate that value into like something that the company cares about, right? Like into their goals. Is the problem there, for example? Or are you like maybe struggling to up level, to ask for introductions to other people? So it really depends on like what is the area. And then we'll put like a little challenge, right? As in like, hey, maybe like ask for introductions in your next meetings. See how it goes. Is it really as uncomfortable as you think it is?
Yeah, so I think up leveling is the one thing that most people struggle with. So in terms of thinking big, starting small. So you say, okay, a little challenge, ask for an introduction. Personally, I always think like, how can I enable my personas or my stakeholders to radiate the message or value internally? So can I help them make a little SMS? Can I help them say like, hey, if you screenshot this, you can send it to that person? Like, that's how I try to explain to them. But I love your challenge. Like, hey, ask for an introduction, ask for 10 introductions in the next 2 weeks. Like any other tricks that you implement, like going levels up?
Yeah, like one great thing is like understanding like maybe your main point of contact, what are their targets internally? Right? Like if you have that personal relationship, you can ask these kind of things, right? Like what do your managers care about or your leadership care about? Like how do you, in the end, like how do you perform in your organization? And like you'd be surprised probably like how you can bring those together with your own goals, right? And like I love how a CSM on my team was sharing a story actually last week around this, where she sat together with their main champion and did a little exercise, like understanding their like his goals. And in the end, like they made it overlap and they are basically like now operating as they call with the customer, like we're operating as one team to make both of us successful, and super powerful. Everything that came from that is really incredible in terms of user growth, adoption, and dollars. It's really incredible.
So sometimes in the end, people not always know what their goals are or who owns the budget. So one of the risks or one of the challenges that the teams that I've managed to face is like, I don't want to go over my champion. So I want to respect our relationship. I don't want to top this person and they are gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go about those kind of relationships?
There's various ways. Like one that I like is maybe you are not the person that should reach out to those. You protect your relationship with this champion, but someone comes over the top. So I can help out, like our chief revenue officer can help out, like other people can maybe go over the top and we'll say sorry.
Yeah, so you can then do the C-level to C-level communication, and then you can say, oops, sorry, like you play the oops, sorry game a lot?
Exactly, definitely, yeah, definitely. And it works, right? People don't care about that in the end. But this brings actually like up a topic that we haven't talked about. When you think about stakeholder mapping, stakeholder management, what you might intuitively think about is just the stakeholders at the customer side, right? But it's very important to include in the stakeholder mapping your internal team, right? Because it's probably not only, I mean, especially more complex and bigger organizations, right? You have multiple people on the account team, supporting roles, you have your leaders and so forth. So you need to also map, like what you don't want happening is like you as the CSM having relationships to everybody, right? Like if everything leads back to you, you also have a problem, probably, right? Like you need to make sure to connect other people. CFO to CFO, like our CRO to their chief procurement officer, like our product to some of the users, etc. You need to have these multiple lines. That's when you get really strong.
Yeah, actually, like one of the things we measure is C-level to C-level communication. So you need to enable that. You need to make sure that they talk to each other, and then you actually hit some checkbox or you get some points, impact drivers. But like, what separates a mid-tier customer success manager and a enterprise strategic customer success manager who manages this perfectly in your eyes? Like, what makes a difference?
Yeah, like I think it's natural for CSMs to have like focus on the features, on adoption and so forth. What sets like a junior or mid-tier CSM apart from like a strategic, very senior CSM is like being able to translate those user stories into value and to connect those to business initiatives, to things that their leaders care about. That's really when the magic happens, because then you connect the different layers to each other. And that's when you build those relationships, right? If you can't connect that value to the people higher up in the organization, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to care. So that will help you in the relationship building.
And for me, often I talk with the teams, it's about like, hey, try to get out of the busy work, do one step back, helicopter view, and link user stories to company value. Or in the end, like business metrics to business value, or users metrics via business metrics to business value, like the triple layer approach. Do you think this is just something that comes with experience? Or like, can you coach people get better at this really fast?
I mean, like, it definitely gets easier with experience, and I think it's a matter of practicing and seeing what good looks like as well, right? So what I like to do is if I have one person on the team who's really great at that and has a great example with a customer, for example, like, hey, walk the rest of the team through this. So like, it's not like something, again, that people hear on podcasts or hear their leadership talk about, like, hey, my peer is doing this successfully. This is great. Like, she set it up like in this way. Okay, I can try to repeat that. So I think examples are very powerful. And and then it is practice, and it is getting out of the busy work, zooming out, making time for that, because it's very easy to just get stuck in busy work, right? Like just answering emails.
We're all dopamine junkies. So get busy work. So we talked about the why, like why do you need to go deep? Why do you need to go wide? We talked about how do you operationalize it? We talked about the risks where it might break fastest. We talked about how to operationalize, how to coach your people, how to get them further. And for people that are still listening, like what's your biggest recommendation for them to start with this tomorrow?
Use the templates that I will share. No, I mean, use the template, but think about this, right? Like, think about these different layers and like, where am I lacking, or what is uncomfortable for me, or like, where do I need to maybe like learn skills and like talk about that with your leaders. But yeah, I hope everybody sees the importance of it.
So let's say there is a VP of revenue above you or me, and he doesn't believe that we need to spend extra time in stakeholder mapping. How would you convince him or her, or how would you create a little business case why we need to do the extra step in this particular element? Because you're going to talk about this next week. So yeah, how can I convince others to do this?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, like, our chief revenue officer is the last person I need to convince about this. But like, just to paint the picture, maybe like how he convinced me in this case is a good example. Because like, it is very important to do the stakeholder mapping, because you're talking about influence, right? Like, you want to have influence in the organization. And this really depends, I guess, like on your product and on the deals that you have. But by analyzing renewals, where we see churn data, where we see detractions, that doesn't happen like one day or the next, right? Like, it's not like, hey, something changes and boom, it's gone. It erodes, the influence you have erodes over time because a champion left, because the narrative around your product changes. And that's where stakeholder mapping comes in, to spot those signals, to have your people who keep you up to date. And that's like how you get healthy accounts. It's a lot of work, but it's needed and it's worth it.
Yeah, I love it. Like, thank you for your little masterclass. And can you inspire me and others with a little end quote?
Definitely, yeah. So for me, like, the enterprise growth, that's what we all want. We want growth, isn't driven by features, but it's really driven by the influence through stakeholder mapping, the narrative that you can have inside your organization.
Yeah, so get rid of feature selling, go into influence-based selling.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Post Sales Podcast, where we interview CS leaders about their tips and tricks to grow as leaders. We hope to meet you at one of our upcoming events at Customer Success Snack, like all over Europe. And if you want to reach out to Wout, one of our guests today, please check him out on LinkedIn. And we hope you enjoyed listening to this masterclass, and see you next time.